What's up, guys? I'm back with my partner in crime, Alan Seslowsky, continuing best ball season. We're taking a look at our favorite sleepers, but more importantly, these are players that we think can rise above their current ADP and help us win our best ball leagues, our fantasy leagues, all that good stuff. What's going on, Alan? Great to have you back again. The boys are back.
Yeah, no, I always enjoy talking fantasy football rankings with you, and I think that it's important to point out as we become more mature in our analysis, more experienced in our analysis, that we can rattle off player takes. These are the ones that we like. Ultimately, anyone using this video to do their research should really, you're a smarter player than you used to be, right? 5 years ago, 3 years ago, and make your own decisions on that. But I think that this conversation is important because it talks about types of players, not necessarily the actual player. So I want to just get into some of the player takes, but also the other types that could break out or beat their ADP, Geek.
Absolutely. This is how you win your leagues. Last season, I actually did a study in best ball tournaments, and league winners had generally 3 players on their team. They almost always had one of Kyron Williams,
Right.
Puka Nacua, some
McCaffrey?
others. What's that?
McCaffrey?
Yeah, well, that helped too, but that wasn't. Yeah, a little Christian McCaffrey last year, but certain names that you plucked late in the draft that rise up well above their ADP. And that's really everything for me in fantasy football. It's pretty easy to pick the first round. Everybody's good. First couple, they're all good players. So how do you win your league? And these are the names that are going to help you win the league. And I've got the man, Alan Seslowsky, here with me to share those tips. So, Alan, let's get right into it. Let's talk about some players this season that you feel are going well below where they're going to wind up in ADP.
You brought up Kyron Williams, and I think the lesson there, by the way, because in a lot of home leagues or even I guess best ball, he was either drafted or he wasn't. Doesn't matter. You couldn't really do anything about it. But when somebody shows themselves as being a high volume running back in week 1, and we weren't expecting it, and it probably will happen again, just put all your fab in, right? Like, don't be like, I'll go 20%. So a player that, are we sure that Kyron Williams is that guy this year? The Rams drafted Blake Corum. He goes in like the 10th round of drafts. So I think that he might be, like when there's uncertainty, you want to draft the later guy too. So even if you're taking Kyron Williams in the 3rd round, Blake Corum, man, he was one of the better running backs in this class. I think he was the 3rd running back taken in the 3rd round. So we've seen Sean McVay's system when a running back does get their projected start, they basically get most of the workload. And Kyron Williams, Geek, missed 4 weeks at a time, twice, I think. I think he had 2 IR stints, at least one. And if Blake Corum, if you could draft him in the 10th round, even if he doesn't fire right away, he's a player that when he does get that projected start, can win you a couple weeks pretty much by himself, similar to what Kyron Williams did last year.
Yeah, I love taking players that are on the running back side that are just an injury away, not of some dual role where you might not even be excited to have them anyway, but rather they're an injury away from you're taking them as your RB1 in DFS that week and every week that they're the solo guy. So
yeah, he might actually have some standalone value. We don't know at this point, right? So that's why if you're doing any early drafts, you want to have him because, the outcomes could be that he's 50%, that he's, 10 or 15%, meaning of the workload, or that he's the 1A and he's 55% to Kyron. The one thing about Kyron Williams is that he got too banged up last year, and they need to figure out a way that doesn't happen. If that means lowering Kyron's workload a little bit. So all those out, it's not just that he's an injury away. He'll be like the week 3 waiver wire pickup. Like he's draftable in the 9th to 11th round and see what happens.
Yeah. Sean McVay has shown very little loyalty to the running back position. We saw Cam Akers get tossed aside even before the injury last year, and we thought coming into the season he'd be the guy. So they have no problem moving off of guys. Kyron Williams is also small, so let's keep that in mind. He's another HN-sized, 190-pound running back. That's kind of a weirdly small size for a running back in the NFL. So who knows? I like it. Good call on that one. I'm going to give you a name.
Have you drafted him, by the way? Have you drafted Corum in any of the best balls yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I target, because we're heavy into dynasty, so I just know the rookie names, and so I'm hammering those names pretty early in dynasty or in best ball leagues late, because that's who wins. The surprise rookies is usually how you get there. But I'm going to be playing. It's not even it's going to be a surprise. It's just people don't like this guy or they hate this team. I like everything about this team. A lot of my players will come from this team. That is the New York Football Giants, and in particular, the running back on the Giants, Devin Singletary. Singletary is currently going in round 9 or 10 of drafts. His ADP on Underdog is 110. I have him ranked as the 84th overall player. And the reason is he's the only guy on the Giants. People are hating on the Giants offense. I get it. They weren't very good last year. Fine. But hey, they've added some pieces. The quarterback is healthy, and Devin Singletary has no competition for touches. Who is getting carries on the Giants, Alan, besides Devin Singletary this year? And why is he going so late?
Yeah, they drafted last year a 5th-round pick named Eric Gray, who probably will be in the mix. But again, that's exactly who you want as the second guy, right?
Yeah.
No one that's like dynamic. And then they drafted a player named Tyrone Tracy, who is a converted wide receiver, so he could eat up some of the pass catching duties. But you're right, man. Devin Singletary had some top 12 weeks last year for Houston. They didn't resign him. Now remember, head coach of the Giants, Brian Daboll, drafted Devin Singletary in Buffalo, right? So he's familiar with this player. They proactively went after him. Like he was a player that, I mean, you and I were talking about that new series on HBO about the Giants, right? They're like, oh, we'll just wait. And in that series, the Giants offseason, the GM Joe and the coach was like, we'll just wait to the second wave of free agency to get our value running back. Meanwhile, they were one of the first teams to pluck a free agent running back after they let Barkley go. So I agree with you. There's a little bit of Giants bias baked in with Devin Singletary, but if you're playing the weight on running back game, he's ideal. I think that Devin Singletary could move up a round and a half, 2 rounds, and he's a boring name. That's why. I mean, no one's excited to take Devin Singletary. So it sounds like you're coming around to my philosophy of fantasy football: draft boring players, win leagues.
I mean, there's upside spots, and then there's yeoman like. If I can get, I want to draft exciting players early, but as we start to get later in the draft, I want guys. If I can get a starter, Underdog Fantasy in particular is a half point PPR format, meaning running backs are important, touchdowns are important, and if you could put in the area of the draft when you're dealing with really crappy players that are wide receivers, for example, low-level guys, and the other running backs at that point are really, really just upside secondary. You just mentioned Blake Corum. He goes ahead of Devin Singletary.
Yep.
And I'm like, wait, I can get a starter who's going to be on the field at the goal line every time, or a backup that I have to wait and hope that a guy gets injured for. I'm just going to take. This is a productive player, so I'm excited about Devin Singletary this year.
Well, one more thing with Singletary here, I think that's important to point out, is that I know last year was with Houston, but it's still, I mean, the weeks 10 through 17, one of our favorite fantasy football strategies, Geek, is to look at what a player did the last 2 months of the season. Now, it's a different team, a different situation. Devin Singletary, RB10 overall.
Yeah, he was fine.
An RB1.
Yeah, he was fine last year.
Fine. That's more than fine. That's like a 3rd-round pick.
Yeah, that's again, I like to see him having done it before, and there's a big one. So let's move on, Alan. Give me your next player that you think is going to rise above their ADP and help you win our leagues this year.
Yeah, I think if we're sticking with the running backs, I mean, Raheem Mostert was like a top 3 running back last year based on 20 touchdowns. Now, similar to Singletary, right? The only reason that Mostert's going in the 8th round of these drafts is because he's old, right? But he doesn't have a lot of miles on him, and the perception of his injury concerns. I mean, he had a couple season enders. Like one of them was in week 1 2 years ago, but he's been healthy and hasn't really missed a game. Well, 2 years ago, he didn't miss any games. And last year, he did a couple stints on the IRs, but when he was active, man, there was a game where he had like 4 touchdowns, Geek. So that kind of upside is not really available in the 8th round. Usually, like when you talk about Singletary, you're talking about a guy that gets 80 yards and you're hoping for a touchdown. With Mostert, I mean, if he's active and getting 12 to 15 touches, there's multi-touchdown upside for a player like that. So again, boring, old, but we love Miami's system. Achan is going to be the early round guy, but if you don't want to spend that pick on a running back early, I mean, Mostert is one of the guys I've been drafting a lot. And again, the old bias is pushing his ADP down.
Yeah, I think the bias it's for good reason. Also, the injury potential is real.
But the eighth round,
yeah, but no, but in the 8th round, it's fully baked into the price,
right?
Because people forget that last season, Mostert and HN were interchangeable. It wasn't like one guy was getting more touches than the other.
You could start them both if you had them last year.
Yeah, you were playing both of them. They were interchangeable, meaning you didn't know coming out of the game which one was putting up the bigger number, and half the time it was, HN, not but the other half time it was Mostert. So, but I do think the injury concern is real at his age, and I think actually going back to the previous discussion about Blake Corum, we do have a rookie in
Jalen Wright
on Miami who makes for an exciting sort of when one of HN or Mostert gets hurt, the other one is not probably going to step in and just become this volume beast. What's probably going to happen is the rookie will come in, and so I like Jalen Wright as well in that same discussion as like a late pick that you can get.
Yeah, coming off the year Raheem Mostert had, if he was age 27, Geek, where would he be going? Like in the late second, early third round, right?
Probably ahead of, or him and HM would go back to back, like the way that Ayuk and Debo go back to back.
Listen to some of these like weekly PPR scores, right? 13, 25, 45, 15, 34. I mean, you put him in there, and in the 8th round, I mean, I'm psyched to have. By the way, in a lot of we talked about dynasty. In a lot of our dynasty drafts, where I pick on the hook on the turn, I'll take Jalen Wright, who you mentioned, and Raheem Mostert. They have the similar ADP.
Yeah,
so it's like you got the old crusty veteran, and then you have the backup with the high upside. So
anyway, I love it.
So will you draft some Mostert after this conversation?
I have him. I have him ranked exactly where he goes. So I'm not under or over on Mostert. I just checked my have my rankings up on screen here, and I just checked it, and I have him exactly where he goes on Underdog. Right around the 88th overall player. But he absolutely will. To the point of this breakdown, he is exactly the player that will outplay that. Like he is discounted because of the injury risk. So if he stays healthy a whole year, he will 100% outplay. As a matter of fact, I don't see any difference between him and HN, who goes 4 or 5 rounds before.
Hey, Geek, I'll even add on to this that even if he doesn't stay healthy all year, he'll still outplay that ADP. With all of the games that he, quote, missed last year, and there weren't many, Raheem Mostert, he was RB3 overall with missed games.
Yeah. No. I love the pick, and definitely massive potential to outplay that ADP. Yep. So right on board with it. I'm going to give you, let's continue on. I mean, we're just focused on running backs right now. I think a lot of the running backs, I love the value at running backs this year. How do you, are you on board with that? I think the value at running back is crazy good this year. You can get them late. They're a few of them are being misvalued, I think. What do you think about the running backs overall in 2024?
Well, BestBall, I call it BestBall brain, underdog brain, is really screwing people up because sometimes you just have to adjust to the market you're in, right? Like if you're in a super flex draft and quarterbacks are not being taken early, sometimes it just pays to wait. And I think in BestBall, the wide receivers go so early and it pushes all the good running backs down to these values that we've never seen before. Like, there's players that would normally go in like the 2nd round of a normal draft at the running back position that are available in the 5th and 6th round. And I think when you start doing like your home leagues, your work leagues, that is not going to be the case. Like,
is this going to mess me up? Is this going to mess me up for my season log?
Totally. Jonathan Taylor is going to go at like pick 7. You know what I'm saying? Like Barkley's going to be a 1st rounder. Like all of these guys that produce, Kyron Williams will probably go at the 1st round or 2nd round of a lot of drafts, and and so on and so forth. Anyone who produced last year, I'm not saying like Raheem Mostert, but like Joe Mixon won't be the great value that he is in underdog drafts. He'll go in the 3rd round because he's a starting running back. So underdog has its own league economy.
So I got that best ball brain because I am seeing running backs galore just going not where they should. And it's bizarre because again, Underdog has that half point PPR format where running back is really, really important. I'm going to give you a name that everybody's bored with, right? No one cares. You're going to make a face at me like, really, that guy? And then I'm just going to make my argument for it. But it's another offense. I mentioned the Giants before. The other offense that I'm targeting heavily because everybody's shitting on it are the Patriots, and in particular, Ramondre Stevenson. Now, last year, Ramondre, aside from being injured a couple times throughout the year and banged up, had to deal with Zeke Elliott getting his Zeke Elliott touchdown roll, right? Getting all the dirty work at the goal line, stealing all the touchdowns. And you got a kind of mediocre version of Ramondre that was just not scoring touchdowns, really. On a team
and Ramondre missed like 4 weeks in the crit, and he wasn't available for you. I think he got hurt in week 13 in the middle of the game, and then he missed the entire fantasy playoff. So people, I love the pick, and I'm going to let you finish your analysis here. But when someone gets hurt when you need them most, there's a little bit of bias.
Wait, are you saying he got hurt and everybody forgot about Dre? They forgot about Dre?
Very well. Very good.
They did forget about Dre.
Very good.
They have no competition for touches for Ramondre this year. Nothing. They've got a running mobile quarterback that we have seen that help okay running backs in the past, a la Anthony Richardson with Zach Moss last season. Worked well together. Didn't think it would, but it worked great together. Drake May, not quite like that, but still a mobile quarterback and improvement overall for the offense. Some young wide receiver talent on the team now. The offense should be better.
Totally. And Ramondre Stevenson, they did sign Antonio Gibson, so he'll be involved in some way. But Ramondre Stevenson just got his fresh contract, which basically assures allegiance and that he's going to be the lead back.
Yeah.
You don't see fourth round. And Ramondre was drafted in the 4th round of the real NFL draft his year. You don't usually see guys get that type of allegiance. So when they do, it's reassuring, right? Like someone like Dameon Pierce on the Houston Texans, he was a 4th round running back. Do we expect him to get that kind of allegiance? Absolutely not.
No.
Ramondre does have that. The New England has that same perception that we thought of with Houston last year, that it's a bad team. But as we see, a lot of times that's completely wrong. Seattle the year before was thought of as a dumpster fire, ends up being a good offense. So I love the call. Ramondre's on my list as well. And last year, RB 33 overall, that's total points on a points per game basis. Who knows? Because I still think health is a skill. So Ramondre going in like the 5th or 6th round of those drafts. I mean, this is even later, huh? Yeah, I've seen him moving
82 overall. He's right there. He's in, 82 overall was round 7 on Underdog.
Yeah, like I said, the home leagues will push him up a little, and also the contract news I'm seeing him be a steady climber.
Yeah.
He's a good player who catches passes, and the biggest obstacle to his fantasy downside was Zeke Elliott, like you smartly pointed out. He's gone.
And understand, I like that they replace Zeke with Antonio Gibson, because Gibson has never been this guy, that you're going to give the ball to at the goal line anyway, and just hasn't been able to supplant anybody as a starting RB. So I think he's there for the role that he's going to probably play, which will keep Ramondre at that 65 to 70% touch range that we want. And again, does this player blow my mind? Is he going to put up 30 pointers most weeks? No, but it's late in the draft. You've waited on running back a little bit, right? You've got studs everywhere at wide receiver because that's how you drafted. Or you need that flex, or you need that player that's going to be in there scoring points for you every single week. That's what you put points on the board.
Yep. Let me give you an ADP beater right here early on, right? Someone that we're taking in the first 36 picks, Geek, that I'm going to try to persuade you if you don't like Derrick Henry here. All right.
Oh no, he's on my list.
Oh, good.
I love that you took him. I have him 10 spots ahead of ADP.
Okay.
So
let me just ask straight up. Who's going to have more fantasy points in 2024? Rookie wide receiver Marvin Harrison or Derrick Henry? I mean, who do you think is going to have more fantasy points?
On Underdog, we got a great chance for it to be a healthy Derrick Henry outscores Marvin Harrison especially in Underdog format, like any half PPR. I think probably in any format, Derrick Henry's outscoring.
Doesn't matter the format. And by the way, you can't caveat with if he's healthy. Like that. That's just a lame crutch.
Well, when they're 30, I just, you're right.
Lame crutch.
Every player, I kind of said like every player has the same injury fear anyway. Like,
right.
They can all get hurt.
When Derrick Henry landed in Baltimore, I was like, this is the perfect spot for him. Now, he might have, when you click on his player card, age 30 on there. But what we've seen from Derrick Henry is the guy, going all the way back to his high school days, Geek. We had his high school coach on RotoWire podcast, and he said, this guy is not human, right? We would give him 55 carries in a game in high school, and he'd be like, give me more, give me more. People thought it was child abuse to the coach, right? Same thing happens when he's at Alabama, and then he basically was very lightly used when he got to the NFL. Remember, DeMarco Murray was ahead of him for like 2.5 years. So in NFL years, Henry's an aging player. He's had a lot of carries, but I would say he's more comparable to like a 28-year-old than he is a 30-year-old. And then add in the superhuman element of Derrick Henry. Of course, at any point, any running back could get hurt, like you said. But man, Gus Edwards, what do you have, like 12 touchdowns? And I think Derrick Henry's a little bit better than Gus Edwards. My bold prediction when we do that show, Geek, is going to be Derrick Henry, RB1 overall.
I love it. First of all, I love the Derrick Henry take in general. He's on my list as well. That always goes well for us. And we'll move off of running backs. Let's talk wide receiver after this. But great spot. And Derrick Henry was made. So here was my point with Derrick Henry and how I would have made it was, where does Derrick Henry shine? All throughout his career in games where his team is favored or close, right? DFS, this was a player that Titans are favored, play Derrick Henry this week. Titans an underdog, stay away, right? The Ravens are going to be favored most weeks. They're never going to be heavy, massive underdogs. Throughout the whole year, they'll probably never be an underdog more than 4 or 5 points. Even potentially on the road against the Chiefs, they're not going to be a +7, right? They'll always be within a touchdown. They'll be favored most weeks. The team wants to play defense and run the football. And the best part about Derrick Henry, and the naysayers will say, well, he's on a team with Lamar Jackson. Jackson's a running quarterback. He's going to take the touchdowns. No, he won't. This is not the Eagles.
This is why they brought in Derrick Henry.
Yeah, they don't do that. They do not want to run Lamar into the end zone unless they have to. They don't want to do that. That is not how the Ravens operate.
That is such a good point that Lamar is the best scrambler between the 20s. That's where he gets his 80 yards rushing. That, yeah, sure, he'll have 4 or 5 rushing touchdowns, but when they get in close, they don't want Lamar taking those dings, Geek.
Nope, they don't want it. That is the key counter to the main arguments that you'll hear for that. So love the call. Let's move on. I mean, I love a lot of what QB value. I think that could almost be its own breakdown.
Yep. Did you see my note to you? I said just hit the pause real quick, and then we can edit right there. We'll just pause for a second.
So we are talking now wide receivers that are going to outplay their current ADP, and I'll start with one of my guys. This is not a deep sleeper. Everybody knows this player, but rookie wide receiver Ladd McConkey, somebody I'm very excited about. I'm extra excited about McConkey because I'm hearing great camp reports out of, I think we're going to hear more and more about this throughout, OTAs and as we get into training camp. But McConkey looks to be the next Keenan Allen on this team. Do you think that he has that level of upside? And, Keenan Allen was carrying teams to championships last season. Can McConkey be that guy this year out of nowhere? I've got him 15 spots above his current ADP.
Yeah, I mean, McConkey, I've heard the comparison to Keenan Allen. I've heard it to Cooper Kupp. His rookie season was...
Why do you think people compare him to Cooper Kupp? What do those two have in common?
Because they're both Chinese.
Is that
yeah.
Yeah, all right. He's got a little Julian Edelman in him going there, too, huh?
Yeah, look, they drafted Ladd McConkey within the first few picks of the second round, which is basically a quasi-first-round pick. Yes, he's, quote, a day 2 pick, but what's the difference between pick 28 and pick 35? It's kind of all flat tier, right? So, yeah, no, I like his chances. He's never played NFL football, so there's the risk and why he is going in like the 7th, 8th, 9th round, depending on where you find him and what platform you're on. But he does strike. He's like the kind of player that will go 80 for 850 and 6 touchdowns, which, by the way, in the 8th round, that's so good, right? Like, it's hard to imagine a rookie getting 95 receptions for 1,100 yards and 9 touchdowns, right? Just because they just haven't played the game. And also, remember, Ladd McConkey had a couple injuries in college at Georgia, right? And so doesn't have like a clean bill of health. The NFL game is a little bit harder. So I love the call. The upside's there. And I think that he's a safe pick where he's going. And you don't always need like league winners. But I think that as far as ADP beater, Geek, he's probably one of your best calls that you've been talking about all offseason.
Yeah, I've loved him. And again, it gets annoying because you're on somebody when their like ADP is 98 and then it's 88 and now it's 67. But it's moved up.
It's like when you like a band before they're popular, right?
Yes.
And then all of a sudden
as soon as they become popular, it's not cool anymore.
What was there ever a band like that for you, or a rap artist or anything that you liked before they blew up? Like, you hear a lot of people talk about Pearl Jam or Nirvana back in the 90s. Was there anyone that you were on?
I can't remember. I'm sure there were rappers and that kind of thing, but I don't really know when they blow up. Like if I was liking them, I was liking them. You know what I mean? Like did Mobb Deep ever blow up or you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
Right.
But
right.
That seems like something you'd be into. Like you had like indie bands that you were into in high school.
And then all of a sudden,
like, wait, I could see you like going full emo in high school. Just like being into The Cure for a minute.
No, I was, my claim to like, hey, I was on them first was I was always into hip hop before it was on the radio, right? When I say on the radio, I mean on like mainstream radio. So you used to have to, like Friday nights between 10 and midnight, they'd play hip hop on New York radio. Other than that, in like the late 80s and early 90s.
I feel that way too. Actually, I would say Wu-Tang was something I was into.
There you go.
I don't know when they blew up. Like they never blew up on the radio. So I was like, I love the Wu.
Yep. Good call right there. And that's, the Wu-Tang is your Lad McConkey. Lad McConkey is your Wu, I should say.
There's a lot more going on though at wide receiver. So let's give me one of your guys. Give me a flag plant at the wide receiver position. He's going to outplay his ADP. Not quite a sleeper. We can get deep sleepers another time, but we're really talking players that are going to outplay their ADP.
Yeah, his former Charger and now Jet Mike Williams was off to a great start last year, right? I mean, he was like a top 10 wide receiver before he got injured, and now that's the problem. Mike Williams has had some season enders, right? And he did have a long stretch where he wasn't getting injured, and he's a good player. Now age 29, playing with Aaron Rodgers. Now, if you think Aaron Rodgers is still, I mean, he's only a year or two removed from that MVP season, Aaron Rodgers, so I still think he's at least competent, if not a real life NFL quarterback, at least top 10 or 12. So if you believe that, and Garrett Wilson can't get everything, so they bring in Mike Williams, who should have some big games. You get Mike. Nobody wants him because he's injury prone, but he's set up to be like have 5th round, 4th round value at the wide receiver position and beat his ADP, which is like the 9th round. Geek.
Yeah, that is definitely not a name I was expecting to hear today. So you did surprise me. Williams, listen, former top 10 overall pick in the NFL draft, talented guy. Hasn't quite had that full put it together season, but a touchdown machine throughout his career. So yeah, maybe with Aaron Rodgers in there, and maybe Malachi Corley doesn't quite take over, or kind of plays a rookie third string or WR3 type role for this year. Why not? Why not Mike Williams?
Mike Williams had 3 healthy weeks, right? He got hurt at the end of week 3. And through those 3 games, which again, it's not a huge sample, but it's while he was healthy, right? He was wide receiver 15 overall. His PPR game log, 8.5, 16.5, and 25.1.
I'm going to give you a name that's very similar to Mike Williams, but younger and fresher. And people don't like him. And I think they're going to be mistaken, or I'm going to look really stupid. One or the other, which I like. And that's Christian Watson, wide receiver, Green Bay Packers. The arrow is pointing up for Christian Watson, Alan. More so even in best ball formats, where the potential for spike weeks and his style of play will shine, right? This is a guy who is a touchdown machine. The problem is last year got the hammy issues, right? Got the balance problems. Now he's going to the doctor, specialists, the Cooper Kupp crew. They're going to fix it, they said. What did they say? They said one leg is stronger than the other leg. I don't know what the hell goes on here.
Yeah, I mean, if they can get his injuries, because his injury was like really weird. It was lingering. It never got better. We saw a couple years ago that when he was playing with Jordan Love, by the way, he had big games, massive upside, but there is a question, is that hamstring going to be fixed, right? Like, or is it going to cause him to be missing games? Then all of a sudden you're holding a player, he's clogging up your roster. So, and then also the other issue with Christian Watson, which is why his ADP is a little depressed, is that Jaden Reed, the rookie teammate, now second-year player, emerged as a good player. Good, not great, but still was an every week starter in most 12-team leagues. So Christian Watson does have that what the spike week potential, and obviously best ball ideal format. But if you're going to draft him in a managed league, I mean, the upside, those are the type of players that win you weeks. Remember Will Fuller from like a half decade ago? Those are the type of players that can put up a 35 at the wide receiver position. Good call, Geek.
Here's my bold call. Christian Watson outscores Jaden Reed, outsnaps him for the team. I think that Jaden Reed is not going to be on the field. I think Jaden Reed is being taken way too high. I have him massively below, and I think Christian Watson will outplay him. I have Christian Watson ranked ahead of Jaden Reed by a lot. Jaden Reed plays a role on that team that is just very crowded. All of these guys are on a crowded role. There's Romeo Doubs. Everybody forgets about Romeo Doubs. He as well, and Jontavian Wicks.
Jontavian Wicks, yeah.
Yeah, there's too many names. So what the reason Watson stands out to me is because he has a unique skill set amongst this group for that deep ball, that the monster play upside. So give me a little C Watts.
Yeah, I like
to win your league this year.
Yeah, I like the player. If he's one of those guys that could be an actual ADP beater, so it's a good call. I got burnt by him, so I probably have a little bias. I had too much.
He kicked me in the balls last year. There's no question. I had the same hopes last season.
Yep. Michael Wilson on Arizona Cardinals, man.
Deep sleep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even. He was good last year. Do you know that the last 2 games of the season? We would always talk about look at the end of the season, because I only want to talk about the games where Kyler Murray came back, right? Because we're not going to talk about the games with Clayton Tune and who else did they have in there? They had a bunch of backup quarterbacks, right? The Cardinals last year,
a bunch of ne'er-do-wells.
Yeah, yes, but the last couple weeks of the season, Michael Wilson, once they had their offense locked in, was getting you like 18 fantasy points, man. I mean, big games from Michael Wilson those last 2 weeks. So why shouldn't that carry over? Now, I know they drafted Marvin Harrison, who's projects to be like the next AJ Green, elite top 10 NFL wideout. But what we've seen, a player like Kyler Murray, who's a very good quarterback, maybe excellent, he could support 2 options. Trey McBride was there, and he was soaking up 10 targets a game. But there's nobody really else after that. There's Greg Dortch, who's been a solid player. But
we are fans of Greg Dortch around here.
Yeah, totally. And I think he'll be heavily involved in the return game. So if you are in leagues, more and more leagues are popping up return yardage now. So I think Dortch is a good play there too. So especially, again, we're talking double-digit rounds, but
what I was going to say, this is a great last pick or second to last pick.
He goes earlier.
You've gone very deep into it, and that is, if you can get a player with your second to last pick in your Underdog or your DraftKings best ball draft, you're winning. All right, you are winning. You're winning that league, right? If you're getting meaningful weeks out of guys you're taking that deep. And I think I'm looking for him on my rank. I can't find him, but
well, you should move him up, man.
I'm going to. Oh yeah, here he is. So he is going on under. I have him actually above ADP as well. He's going at 174 currently. Pick 174 overall. I had him at 168. I might move him up a little bit from there. But he is 174. So what about the 15th round?
Yeah. I mean, 14th. Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
Michael Wilson, the last, 15 fantasy points in each of the last 2 weeks. So again, I don't think you're talking about, like, I'm not talking about guys that are just like shots in the dark. Like, he's going to have an immediate role. So that's why I think he qualifies. And if you somehow scoop up a lot of these running backs, go for a vanity tight end, go for an elite quarterback, and you're like, oh my God, I really don't have a good wide receiver 3. I think this is somebody that can be a top 25, 24 receiver that, basically is an afterthought in drafts. So that's why I bring him up.
I'm gonna mention a player that for me has been a flag plant this offseason. And you already know, we've talked about this guy a lot, but Hollywood Brown on the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't even understand what people are thinking here, sleeping on this guy. He has been a WR1 throughout his career. Like, he was great in Baltimore, banged up a little bit last year, but had a good season before, has had just elite seasons before that. And now he's on a team with Pat Mahomes that doesn't have really a signature WR1. Rashee Rice probably going to get. So do you think Rashee gets suspended for some period of time at the beginning of the season?
I do. I think these things come out of nowhere also. I think, like, you're just going to You're not going to hear about it for a while. That's why his ADP is creeping back up. But they have to give him something. Now it could just be 2 games, which again doesn't really even matter if you're drafting him. But yeah, I mean he's gonna be there for at least half the season, meaning Rice. So at most 8 games, and then it could be as little as 2 games, is my opinion.
Yeah, and that's fine. And so Hollywood will get a chance to establish himself. Rice plays a different kind of a role. Rice definitely plays an up the middle running routes role. If anything, he's harming Travis Kelce a little bit in that they're operating in similar parts of the field as what a tight end would be. Hollywood Brown is playing the Tyreek Hill spot on the team. Reek. Now they do have the rookie. There's a lot of mouths to feed there. So this one, we're going to have to see how it goes. But Hollywood Brown throughout his career has been a burner, has been exactly the style of player kind of that Tyreek Hill is. And I don't want to compare because that's an unfair comparison to make for anybody. But his upside is winning you your league this year because he is putting up monster plays. Now, the downside is he's on a team in the Chiefs that feed a lot of mouths. They never or rarely focus on just one guy. So, the target volume may not be there, but his explosiveness is enough to outplay his ADP. So this is a guy I'm really targeting heavily this year. Hollywood Brown, give me the starting maybe WR1 on the Chiefs.
Yeah, no. I mean, would you take Hollywood over Rashee Rice?
Yes. Oh, all day.
Okay.
No, that's not even in question. I have Rashee well down. In best ball, now I do my rankings for best ball specifically. And in best ball, you can't miss. To me, you can't miss 4, 5, 6 weeks with a guy. Yeah. I don't care if he's coming in late. The only way that that's ever worth drafting is if he's so far below ADP that you can get him in a spot where you didn't need a score, and then you get the white knight riding in weeks 9, 10. You know what happens, says, when a player's out for 4 or 5 weeks, then it takes them a couple weeks to get back into game shape and the whole thing. And, it's just this is a big philosophy that you've talked about to me over the years. You don't want some guy that's just not there for the first weeks. Right. It's always weird.
And when you get suspended, they're not even going to let, you have to trust that. And so he's getting suspended potentially for the knucklehead factor, right? So can you trust that guy to stay in shape when he's away from the team? Because he's not even allowed in the facility, Geek. When you're suspended, you're not even allowed to come to practice. You can't come to the facility and work out. You are on your own.
I'm going to give you another name. I'm going to go again.
Yeah, sure.
Another wide receiver that I'm all over this year and every year. You already know. You know who's coming. Every year. Who's the wide receiver that I've been... All right, I'm not even going to say this name because we've been talking fantasy football for years. Who's the one player that me personally, Kevin, the Geek, have been...
Amari Cooper.
Amari Cooper. You knew.
I knew.
You fucking knew.
I knew.
Amari Cooper was the WR15 last season overall. This guy just does it year in and year out, and everybody hates Amari. I don't know why you guys hate him. I don't know what he did to you. Why no one respects this guy. Amari Cooper should not be going. Amari Cooper is a steal at the end of round 3. You are stealing him there. WR1.
And here's
exciting team. No running back on his team. It's not going to be defense and running game. There's no one. Gerald Ford.
Jerome Ford.
Gerald Ford is there.
The ex-president.
The ex-president. Worst president we've had in years. Actually, no.
That's debatable.
Yeah, that's very debatable. Gerald Ford is going to do it. It's going to be Amari Cooper. They don't have other wide receivers on the team. It's just him.
Yeah, and I also like that he produced a lot with Deshaun Watson when Watson was healthy. Yeah. I mean, David Njoku was definitely the favorite target of Joe Flacco, but that, and Amari Cooper, he was still fine. He was fine
with the Flacco too.
When Watson was there, I mean, Cooper was the first read, the second read, the third read. I mean, he was the apple of Watson's eye, and Watson's, he's in a big year, and he's going to want to go to that trusted target, Amari Cooper. Yeah, I mean, you click on Cooper's player card. He's either 29 or 30 years old. He's not like an exciting pick, but yeah, no, he's going to pay the bills. He could outperform that ADP.
He's exciting for me. I love picking Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper is a WR1. He consistently, again, he's been a top half of the league. So he's been a top 15 quarterback almost every year. quarterback. He's been a top 15 wide receiver in fantasy production almost every year of his career, including last season.
Yeah, I'm trying to look when Watson got hurt. Oh, in week 3. Okay.
Yeah,
So
whatever they did together, it's hard to really judge a whole lot of what went on last year with Watson. Watson, remember, came back last year, played a few more games, but he was a mess. Listen, if you're down on the Browns offense in general because you're worried about Deshaun Watson, I'm cool with that. I understand that. I don't know about Deshaun Watson. I have some concerns.
Yeah, I mean, but he's good enough to support an offense, right? I mean, I know that there was some stats floating around that he was the most inaccurate quarterback inside the red zone, and there's a lot of reasons to be down on Watson. But look, the best indicator of upside is if you've already done it, and Watson, we know, has already been a top 5 quarterback many times. So
love
yeah,
Amari Cooper, love him.
Yep. So I know that you want to more focus on some of these guys at the top of the rankings here, but I'm just curious that tier that we were just talking about, right? Like those veterans, those boring veterans, and I'll even put Hollywood Brown and Rashee Rice in there. But I just want to name a few guys, and are these players that you're interested in, that anyone consuming the DFS Army ranking should be interested in? Like the Chris Godwin types, Deontay Johnson. I mean, the reason I'm rattling off these names, DeAndre Hopkins, is because if you do want to go for those elite running backs early, Geek, these are the receivers that you're going to be getting, right? If you want to pass on, the Tyreek Hill types for like Christian McCaffrey, or if you want to take Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson instead of Breece Hall. I mean, the other way around. So if you want to take the running backs instead of those receivers, just be prepared that you're going to be shopping in this area. The Deontay Johnson. So let's focus on Deontay Johnson. Number 1 wide receiver in Carolina now. Always been a target earner. They bring him in to see if Bryce Young is complete flat tire. Is he somebody that you think can be an ADP beater?
I don't love him on Underdog where touchdowns are king, but I'll say this as an important sort of positive for Deontay Johnson. He is on a team with Bryce Young that did support Adam Thielen having a couple of good games last year, right? Where they targeted him heavily. So maybe because there's no one else to throw to really, and because he's this veteran who's going to demand the ball, he'll probably have a lot of PPR value. So I do like him this year in fantasy in the sense that I'm comfortable he's on one of my teams. I think he's a guy that'll probably see 8 to 10 targets per game, which is all you could really ask for when you're outside of the first 3 or 4 rounds of wide receiver. But will he get in the end zone? Will Bryce Young turn it around? I'm leaning no. But I don't know. How do you feel about Bryce Young? Do you think you turn around? Like, what do I know?
Yeah. No, totally. I mean, I like Deontay, but it would have to be a PPR setting to be a little bit more bullish on him. So, but yeah, he was a player that I'm like, again, who can outperform, who can get into like the 3rd round as far as like ADP, but it's being drafted, way later than that.
Yeah. I'm cool. Speaking of Deontay, a guy that a lot of people are really high on, and I'm below ADP on a little bit, is George Pickens, his former teammate in Pittsburgh. I think maybe excitement's gotten a little too out of control. He's going as player 40 overall off the board, and I think that's a bit. I like his touchdown upside, but I don't know. I'm taking Pacheco and Nico Collins. There's just other names that I'm taking. Where he goes, of Trey McBride and Josh Jacobs all going behind him in ADP. I don't really get it.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Do you have any other 80? I mean, I have some deeper guys that I've been taking shots on here, but like you said, they're not guys that you're like overly confident in drafting. I'm just and a lot of boring guys too. I mean, I think that's why they could be ADP.
Wide receiver does get boring as you go. Like,
and I love boring, by the way.
I'll mention Curtis Samuel. He's a guy I'm really high on this year.
That's not boring. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, I think with the Bill and Curtis, I'm not massively above his ADP. It's about 93. So people do like him. I'm in the 80s on him, but basically Curtis Samuel is going to play a role that's really important on the Bills. When you look at the rookie that they picked up, that kid is not going to be operating in the middle of the field at all. He is a giant sort of what do they call that? Catch radius guy who's going to be going deep and making contested catches. He doesn't have speed. He's a 4'7", 4'6", 40 guy. So Keon Coleman, not a speedster. He's large. He's not going to be, running, slants across the field. He's not going to be the shifty Deontay Johnson style player. And they need someone in this role. And that's what Curtis Samuel does. He's going to catch the ball close to the line of scrimmage and try to run with it. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I love Curtis Samuel. I think it's a sharp pick. I mean, they exited out Stephon Diggs. They basically brought in a rookie with Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid, the tight end who's got some good pass catching upside. But they brought in Curtis Samuel to basically be that veteran presence that could do it all, as you already outlined here. Curtis Samuel should probably be getting drafted ahead of Keon Coleman. It's not that way in these drafts, right? Now, Curtis Samuel has always been like, hey, he's got potential. He's got upside to do it. But, man, is he in a really good spot. It's so easy to, imagine we're in week 3 and, Curtis Samuel's, wide receiver 7, right? And it's like everyone's
I feel like the team fit for Curtis Samuel is as good as the team fit for Derrick Henry, who you mentioned earlier. Man, this is a veteran, but he couldn't be in a better – it's like the Ravens were built for Henry. The Bills were built for Curtis Samuel. Yeah. They've tried this role with other players in the past, Ian McKellen or something like that. Or, they've had people in that role before where they wanted the shifty guy. They're going to hand it to you near the goal line on the end around. You will see Curtis Samuel score on more than one end around this year. Bold call.
Yeah. No, I mean,
amongst other things.
Yeah, I love it. He played a little running back at Ohio State too, so I think it's an excellent call there. That one, he should be on your must draft list, right? I mean, he's not even like ADP. Yeah, he should be on in every draft list there.
Another guy. Let me give you one more, and you're gonna love this play. Josh Palmer, must draft.
It's a boring. It's like Tyler Lockett-y boring pick, but yeah, I could see it, right? Like he's the veteran guy in LA Chargers, and we talked about McConkey as like a fun, exciting pick, but man, why not wait another 5 rounds and get the guy who's actually produced in the NFL, right?
He's literally got it done in this role before. He's not gonna. Yeah, you're right when you say boring. He's not gonna get 12 targets. He's a 6 to 8 targets guy, but with Justin Herbert as his QB on the field all the time, and you're getting him so late in the draft. You're drafting him against guys who won't even play, who are hopeful guys, not even starters. So it's really a good spot for Josh Palmer. Let's move on. There's one position group. We're going to skip tight end, and we're going to go right to quarterback because this position group is really interesting for me, and I'm going to tell you why. And I want your take on it. I think there's such good talent late at the quarterback position this year, 2024, that we are going to flip. The field after last season is going to want to take studly QBs early. We all got screwed last season. Our quarterbacks all got hurt. It was a terrible year. And unless you had Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts or at one point CJ Stroud or Lamar, if you didn't have one of those guys or Dak really, you were screwed last season. And so I think the field has been trained. I need a QB. I need a QB. Or a lot of people had, got burned last season at quarterback.
Well, the elite QBs are cheaper than they were last year, right? Josh Allen was a 1-2 turn player. Jalen Hurts and Mahomes were both going in the second round. I mean, you don't even have Josh Allen is the first quarterback in most drafts, and he doesn't get drafted to the early to mid third round. So
yeah,
again, the elites are cheaper.
Even then, I think it's a mistake to pay up for QB this season. I'm going to tell you why. There are such incredible values late at the QB position. You don't need to bother with any of this. Take your studs early in 2024. And here's some names. I like the stud QBs, but I'm not going to pay for them. I'm not paying for Andy Richardson, CJ Stroud. They're going too soon. Stud, Amari Cooper's available. Taking him instead, right? Why? You can wait. Some of these names that you can get incredibly late are ridiculous. Right off the bat, Jaden Daniels, Washington rookie QB, is a pure running QB. Think Anthony Richardson in 2023. Mm-hmm. That can throw. He seems to have it all. A guy I'm incredibly excited about in Dynasty. But if Caleb, hear me out. If Jaden Daniels can be a just mediocre NFL QB in terms of his overall sort of picture, his fantasy production is going to be massive. If he can do the things that he wants to do and needs to do, he is going to score massive fantasy points. Team win or lose doesn't matter to me. Jaden Daniels is going to win you your league this year, and you're getting him beyond QB 11. He's a QB, he's a QB 2 effectively. You're getting him in the far late rounds of your draft. And this guy's going to win your league. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, Jaden Daniels, if he hits, he's like RG3, right? There's a lot of similarities there. RG3, when he was rookie of the year and had over 1,000 rushing yards, was the second player drafted by Washington. It's easy to like put those narrative pieces together. Jaden Daniels also has a massive arm, and they've also drafted a rookie named Luke McCaffrey, Christian McCaffrey's brother.
Yeah, you think he's going to be Luke could be like anything year one?
Yeah, I think that the reason he's a converted quarterback. So again, Luke knows what the quarterback is looking for. He specializes in the type of routes that Jaden Daniels can throw, those big looping deep balls. And again, if not, Jahan Dotson's that guy, right? He's a prolific touchdown scorer. Terry McLaurin, just an always underrated real NFL player. Go ahead.
Can we get the resurrection of Jahan Dotson?
Yeah, I mean, he had a great rookie season, scored a lot of touchdowns in Penn State, was a massive touchdown scorer. And last year just had a down year with Sam Howell. And what did they have? Jacoby Brissett out there. Was Brissett on that team last year, I think, right?
I don't even think so. Brissett would have been good on that team, I feel.
Well, they after Howell, I think it was Brissett.
It was? Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, Jahan Dotson, I don't know. That's as speculative as it gets because you would have thought, I don't care how he should have been better than he was last year.
Well, the point was about Jaden Daniels is he's set up for a good season, right? He could scramble when needed. And if you're going to take a shot on a single quarterback league on the upside of Jaden Daniels, just back him up and you can get Matthew Aaron Rodgers doesn't even get drafted in single quarterback leagues, right? Specifically your home league. Yeah. So, and in best ball, if you just want another little trick you could do is if you take Jaden Daniels, you could add both Steeler quarterbacks in the very end. You can get Russ and Justin Fields, and then you have an extra roster spot, but at least you have some padding built in, some safety built in there.
I think, my approach in Underdog and in best ball in general is I'm always going to have 3 quarterbacks anyway. But I like these upside guys, but if you take them late, it's not burning your rosters. So if you take 3 quarterbacks, but one of them is Josh Allen, now you've wasted an elite, you've used an elite pick on a quarterback, and you've also used 3 roster spots. That's too much. If you do that, if you take the Josh Allen, kind of have to drop it to 2. But when I like to start late with these guys. I'm gonna give you the quarterbacks are so weirdly priced this year. You could really crush it with this position group by waiting. The next guy, Dak Prescott. What's wrong with Dak?
Yeah,
there's no running back on the team. They didn't bother to get a running back at all. They just said, YOLO, we're going to do it without a running back this year.
Well, they do have Zeke Elliott, who for all intents, and Rico Dowdle, and I still think they're going to add someone. Maybe it's Dalvin Cook. I had heard some rumors that Samaje Perine could be over there. And again, that doesn't change your premise here about Dak Prescott, who, to Mike McCarthy's credit, after the Week 7 bye, they figured out that running the football was not going to advance this team. So Dak was QB2 and CeeDee Lamb wide receiver 1 after that bye. Now it also doesn't make sense that CeeDee Lamb is routinely 1, 2, or 3 off the board and Dak Prescott goes so late, right? Like if you think CeeDee Lamb is going to be awesome, why the heck is Dak Prescott going so late? So yeah, Dak and Kyler Murray, the 2 quarterbacks that I'm going to have at least get one in every draft. And in this last Underdog draft I just did, I got both of them, which is probably not like the best roster.
No, I don't like. I'm going to get 2. The Dak I get on board with all day because he's going so far beyond where he should. But Kyler Murray, you're still paying a premium pick for him, and I don't like it.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
Yeah, it had to do a little bit with like my stacking.
Yeah.
So it was like a roster construction. And I also think it's like a unique pairing, right? So if protect against Murray's, downside, or if Dak has a bad game, I always want that elite quarterback. Again, I'm just trying. So I do so many of these Underdog drafts. I'm trying some unique builds, and maybe some of them are suboptimal, but if they hit, they have like that extreme upside. So yeah, not recommended to go 6th and 8th round with quarterback. But hey, that to the point is to your point originally, there's no reason to pay up for the elite tier, which includes Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and then, of course, CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson. I mean, you can do that, but there's other ways to recreate that later on.
I'm going to give you some really late ones, but back to Dak, a couple things. I think you don't even need CD Lamb with him. Certainly, you like that stack, but I'd be looking if I picked up Dak, then at some point I'm sort of hitting the thumbs up on Brandon Cooks and
Ferguson,
yeah, Brandon Cooks and Ferguson, those secondary guys. That's really where our studies at DFS Army have shown that the true spike week for the quarterback doesn't happen when the WR1 goes off. It happens when the WR2, WR3, and tight end go off. So that's really where you want to be when you're talking about like working stacks late in your best ball leagues. If we're not really on that topic, but that's how you'd want to be. I'm going to give you two other names, though. These names are as unsexy of quarterbacks as you could ever possibly imagine. You're going to say you're out of your fucking mind. But this is who I'm filling out my roster with. And number one is Daniel effing Jones, quarterback, New York Giants. What? Are you crazy? Why? Why would you? He sucks. Listen, this kid, when he's been healthy, I should have pulled this up. I should have prepped this. I don't have the numbers in front of me. But if you go back to his production, especially at the end of 2022, he does not have a lot of healthy games, but he was putting up massive scores when healthy back in 2022. And I'm talking to 40s, 37s, grown-ass man type QB scores. He runs. Now he's got Malik Neighbors, an actual quality wide receiver for the first time in his career.
That's a good call.
Ever. Wan'Dale Robinson, undervalued, useful PPR asset on his team. If Daniel Jones can stay healthy, and I know you said it's cheesy to say if a guy can stay healthy, this is the ultimate situation like that. When he's been healthy, he puts up numbers. You're getting him. His current ADP is 198. I think that's after the underdog is done, right? He is not going anywhere. He's in the last picks. You're getting a starting QB that will produce points for you if he's healthy. Of course, he can get hurt, but whatever. You're taking him so late, it doesn't even hurt you. I love Daniel Jones as a super, super late. You're not taking this guy in your fantasy league, one QB. That's not a thing. But in best ball, I need a third quarterback. I like to have a third guy. This is and I like a third guy, not with, yeoman like 15-point production week after week that could just save the spot for me. If my other two guys get hurt, fuck that. I got two other guys already. They're not getting hurt. Or if they get hurt, screw it. I'm lost anyway. What I want is a guy who can spike a 40-pointer for me, a 35-pointer for me, a 28-pointer for me on occasion. That's what Daniel Jones is going to do this year. He is probably the best late QB pick that you can make. He just is the best pick at 198 where I have him, or I have him at 160, but he's currently going at 198 overall. So you can wait and make sure you get Daniel Jones on your roster.
Yeah, no, I love the upside. I mean, nothing much has changed other than he's backed into a corner now. He's playing for his football career. Is he going to be the Giants starter in 2025 with a good 24, or is he going to be going to the backup circuit role like Mitch Trubisky and all those guys? So I like guys that are playing for their football life. And the only other player in the quarterback position that I've been taking late, Geek, is I think that the hate on Justin Herbert has gone a little too far with the change in philosophy perception for the Chargers. Now, I'm sure they are going to run the ball a lot, but it's still Justin Herbert, man, who's had elite seasons before. So it doesn't need too much explanation. We've talked about the receivers that they have and that there's certainly going to be some challenges there, but Justin Herbert, by all accounts, is having a great offseason. He's picked up the offense and I think could have a really good, efficient season. And at QB 17, it's so easy to see Herbert as like QB 9, like a month into the season. So I'm taking Herbert late if I don't want any of the quote elite options. If I miss out on Dak and Kyler Murray or, Jade Daniels, someone else likes him more than I do. I'm going to take Herbert above a bunch of guys like Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams, Jared Goff, and even Tua to some degree.
Yeah. I'm looking at my, I have Tua just ahead of him, but it's in that same range.
Yeah.
How about Lawrence or Herbert? Which way are you going?
Yeah, I'm probably going to take, like I don't have like a strong feeling on either. I just think that Justin Herbert's the better player, but obviously Lawrence's weapons are better there. So if I'm on the clock, I'll probably take Lawrence, but Lawrence's upside seems to be capped a little. Like it seems like if Lawrence has a good season, he's QB 14. If Herbert has a good season, he's QB 6.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see it.
Lawrence has the better floor because of the infrastructure.
If you're taking Herbert in best ball, make sure you get Ladd McConkey and
Palmer.
Like it's a really easy. Do they have a tight end? Who's the tight end on that team?
I think it's like Hayden Hurst.
Oh yeah, they brought Hayden Hurst over there.
Yeah, and they still have Donald Parham and
Parham. Yeah, not a whole lot going on there. So and no more Austin Eckler. So
no, but they have J.K. Dobbins, rookie Kamani Vidal, and Gus Edwards, who's had an offseason injury. So yeah,
I think that crew makes it more likely he's going to have to throw. I think people have it the back.
Quentin Johnston's still there, the rookie from last year, second-year player. Tight end depth chart is Will Dissly, Hayden Hurst, Donald Parham, and a guy named Stone Smart, if you remember him from DFS.
I do remember him from DFS. Stone.
Yep.
Well, all right. Seslowsky, that's going to do it for us.
That was good. I think that was good.
Yeah,
helpful.
We went through. I mean, if I'm drafting, all of these names are sexy names to be drafting in your best ball formats right now. This best ball season. We got a lot of off season to go before we get to your full, redraft league stuff. But best ball season right now. I love some of these picks, and this is how you win your league. Some of those late guys. So I appreciate you coming on here and breaking it down with me.
Yeah, no, always
back together again.
Always good, easy to podcast with you, and hopefully the listeners, let us know who some of the ADP beaters that you like are in the comments as well. We always like to
check this out, Alan. I forgot to mention, I'm doing Beat the Geek contest on Underdog right now, and it's just fun leagues amongst friends, the watchers of the video, DFS Army subscribers, and all of that, YouTube watchers and everything. So I've put a couple links in the description below to this video. You get in there. It says 12-man. $5 underdog leagues. These are leagues. So you're just competing with the other 12 people. I am in those leagues as well. So you compete against me. They're slow drafts. So you take your time drafting your team and draft for a league. You draft for a 12-person league. And what you want to do is keep them healthy. Don't get crazy. Let everybody else make mistakes. That's how I draft my leagues. And so, don't use our sleepers from this show for that, because that kind of screws us. But if you want to get in there as well, I posted those links in the description below. Just a $5 entry, Underdog, $55, what is it, $60, $55 prize pool type contest. So get in there, 12-man league, see if you could beat the Geek, take down the big dog, so to speak. And we'll be back with more fantasy football goodness, best ball season all throughout the month of July right here on the DF Summer YouTube channel. Hit that like button, subscribe, notification, follow Alan Seslowsky at Alan Seslowsky on Twitter. Where else can I see you got all kinds of podcasts going nonstop?
That's it, man. Just follow on Twitter and everything's posted there.
There we go. All right. We'll see you guys next time. Take care, everybody.